set a clock.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, who in the modern era, like I found it astounding that when Elon came on this program and had a blunt, that like it was an issue.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if like Elon had a glass of Chardonnay?
Well, he did.
Yeah,
no,
I know, but the just the fact that our language and our thought process around this. I mean,
right. I see what you're saying.
I had a dinner at our house a while ago where we took some of the most knowledgeable people on psychedelics and related substances to just have a discussion about what is the state of Schedule I pharmacology. And we asked a question of the interesting substances, what are the three that you find were most informative in terms of self-revelation, changing your understanding for the better, et cetera? I was astounded that of the people who seemed to be very knowledgeable about mind-altering substances, almost everyone put cannabis in the top three.
Why? Because it's so...
Well, I thought it would be sort of commonplace. You know, I wouldn't have guessed. You know, somebody would say 5-MeO-DMT, somebody else would say ketamine, somebody else would say, LSD or DMT or ayahuasca. But the common thread throughout all of these people, many of them were researchers, was that they felt that cannabis was a miraculous substance.
Well, it certainly is. Well, the deal is it has two different forms, right? It has a smokable form, which, you can get really fucking high, or it has the edible form, which is like a psychedelic. Yeah, but it's like a psychedelic. It's very much so. It actually is more psychoactive. There's something called 11-hydroxymetabolite that it's only present when you eat it.
I see.
It's processed by the liver. There's something called a 1-pass. And when it goes through the liver, it produces this 11-hydroxymetabolite that's somewhere between 4 and 5 times more psychoactive than THC. And it's responsible for people thinking that they got dosed. Like a lot of times when people eat edibles, they go like, oh my God, this isn't pot. Something's in there. Well, it's just the 11-hydroxymetabolite. That's what it is.
I know about it.
Yeah, it's way different. It's way different. Like, that's why it's confusing to people. Like, oh, I can't fuck with edibles. It's a different drug. It's a different drug because 11-hydroxymetabolite is not present in psychoactive form when you smoke it. So when you eat it, that's when you get that really fucking weird body high and interdimensional relationship.
Is it better, worse? Is it more interesting?
Well, for the tank, it's bueno. It's the best for the isolation tank. That's my favorite. My favorite is a good stiff dose
of an
edible, and then wait about 45 minutes and then get in the tank. So because 45 minutes, it's like the way I describe it is like with certain psychedelic drugs, and I do consider edible marijuana psychedelic, especially when you get into the 100 milligram, 200 milligram doses. It's very psychedelic. And especially in the tank, because in the tank, when in the absence of any visual stimulation, when your eyes are closed, you have these wild, almost like neon visuals. Like you start seeing these strange dancing cartoons and like weird shit.
Unrelated to other substances?
You can get similar situations on other psychedelics, especially in the tank. The tank is a really unique way to experience anything, even normal like the normal state. The normal state of consciousness that you have without any drugs at all. Right. Inside the tank, it transforms, right? Because in the absence of any sensory input and you don't have anything coming your way, you don't feel your skin, your brain starts really getting free and loose. And it gets very confusing as to what's reality and what's not. What are the boundaries of vision and interpretation and just creativity? Like how much of this is your imagination? How much of this is not? Well, when you add any sort of psychedelic to that tank experience, everything gets ramped up. It's like, you add some drugs. When you mix them with other drugs, they become like way more potent. That's what happens in the tank. The tank in and of itself is some kind of a drug, or it produces some kind of profound drug-like effects.
Can it be banned?
The tank? No, I don't think it can. How much experience do you have with the tank?
Not much.
How many times have you done it?
I've been in once, and it was when I was a teenager.
God, man, you should have one. You
All
really
right.
should. It's just a great way to relax too. It's a great way to, and you as a mathematician, you think of things, and you're spending a lot of time contemplating things, and you have to realize that any other input, whether we think about it or not, is chewing up some bandwidth.
Yeah, although I actually have a kind of ambient level of distraction, which is most helpful for. Look, when I get out there, I get way the hell out there. And
So you like an ambient level of distraction?
sometimes, for example, I'll go to an all-night cafe at like 2 a.m, and there'll be just enough human. I mean, I have very ambiguous feelings about humans. Don't worry, I don't consider you one.
What are you? What do you consider yourself?
We'll talk about this more
Okay.
off the air. No, I really think in many ways I've left this planet.
Really?
Yeah, I think that there's a way in which I've checked out.
How so?
Well, I think that when you get deep enough into your own mind and you start dealing with abstractions and you find that the real world, I wasn't planning on going here, but we can try it.
Okay.
When you find that the real world is often a kind of noisy place to think, and that you actually prefer really powerful abstractions, and then you check in with the real world to say, does that abstraction actually govern the world that I'm in? You start to prefer living in the abstractions.
That's interesting. Like, do you feel the same way about like a crowded nightclub? Like, if you go to a bar, do you find that stimulates thinking?
Well, it depends. I mean, if I'm in a stimulating conversation, I'm very present. If I'm in an unstimulating conversation, I have to make my own fun.
Right.
And so I will start to sort of play. I mean, at times I'll just make up a story and see how it flies. If I don't think I'm hurting anybody. And sometimes I'll sort of experiment with people. I think we're all doing.
You experiment with people?
Well, sure.
Like you say something to someone to see if they bite?
Well, it's like let's imagine, for example, you were going to move to Austin.
Okay.
Are you going to just be the same old you? You're not going to take the opportunity to perhaps reinvent yourself? So, for example, if I suddenly change, if I start wearing glasses and I wear like a really fashion-forward pair of spectacles.
You should wear aviators with yellow lenses like Hunter S. Thompson. I would like that. I'd like that with you. With your crazy hair?
Yeah.
You with some yellow aviators and don't even address it. Wear them in public.
Yeah.
Wear them indoors.
But if I do any sort of alteration, like maybe I've never seen what I look like with a bald head. So
Shave
if I were
that
to,
bitch.
yeah, if I was going to move cities, when's the best time to try it? Try something new.
Right.
And so, at our age, Joe.
Yes. How old are you?
53.
Yeah, that's our age.
Yeah.
I'm 51, almost 52.
So the great danger is complacency. And so I'm terrified about becoming complacent. So I always want to experiment, change. Like, what is it that I can continue to do to grow? And if you can't play and experiment, like maybe, imagine you wanted to go by Joseph, just to see whether it worked. Whatever it is, we get so locked in, and if we change anything, people get angry. And I've always looked at Madonna and David Bowie as like genius squared. Not only did each iteration of them do something that was kind of artistically interesting, but they habituated their audience for change. And so the idea is that every time you met a different David Bowie, he would effectively say, do you like this incarnation of me? Because it's not going to be, it's only here for 1 year. And then I'm going to do something new the next time. I just had conversation with Sean Lennon, in which we talked about how his father, John Lennon, always kept changing, and yet people want to plug in with the idea that John Lennon was just the guy who wrote Imagine, let's say.
Right.
And that's a great danger. Is that if you
Strange is it that we put like a monetary value on actual life itself. Did you see that guy accidentally hit that moose with his car?